I appreciate y'all for tuning in to the very first episode of Make It Make Sense, and it only makes sense if we use Dak Prescott and the Dallas Cowboys contract that did not happen during negotiations as our first episode. Before I get to my major point, I want to give you guys a timeline. So, starting this time last year was when negotiations started. They offered Dak and his camp about $28 million a year. I understand I would not have taken the contract either. I'm assuming Todd France took that as disrespect, so he threw back at them. Again, before the season started last year, he threw back at them an offer of $40 million per year. Dallas Cowboys, as they should have, scoffed at their offer, as Todd France scoffed at the Dallas Cowboys offer. It was reported that pre-week one of last season that the Dallas Cowboys, Todd France, Dak Prescott and company had gotten very close to a deal and were looking at finalizing. Now, after the first 3 weeks of the regular season last year, 3 easy games, I don't know if you remember the schedule, but Todd France and company, I guess, assumed, hey, with Dak Prescott looking as good as he does, we're coming off 3 hot wins. Why not stick to something around that $40 million? It was never officially or reported what they were asking for after those 3 games, but I remind you, they played the Giants, what was known as the Washington Redskins, and the Miami Dolphins. Now, those weren't the 3 worst teams in the league, but they were the 3 worst teams in the league. After Week 3's win against Miami, obviously, that negotiations turned between Week 3's win up until June last month of the length of the contract. Now, it was reported that the contract reached up to about $175 million total, with about 100 to 110 guaranteed. 110 would have made him the highest amount guaranteed to an individual NFL player, and the 175 would have been the highest overall. Now, this was before the Patrick Mahomes deal got completed. Now, the last 2 months before the official deadline, which would be May and June of this year, the question was asked, how much is the contract really worth? Between reporters such as James Slater, Ian Rappaport, Archer, Hill, Fisher. Notable names, the 2 y'all are probably going to know most is James Slater and Ian Rappaport reported somewhere between 33 to 35 million a year, with about anywhere between 100 to 110. I think James Slater anywhere between 106, I apologize, to 110 guaranteed. Again, both highest ever. Now, before the Patrick Mahomes contract, the following of highest paid quarterbacks went Russell Wilson, $35 million, Ben Roethlisberger like $34 million, or maybe he was getting 35 as well, and Rodgers $33.5, Jared Goff $33.5. I'm trying to figure out, when negotiations were brought up, how was $35 million an issue? Oh, it was the years. The number of years was the issue for Todd France, Dak Prescott, and company. Now, here's what I can't figure out. Again, the topic was, how is this the Dallas Cowboys' fault? I believe that we'll be looking at this hindsight in a year or two, and we'll be saying A came out on top or B coming out on top. A will always be the franchise, B will always be the player. There's no disrespect to any of the players. I believe that they should get paid. A lot of them are underpaid, but it comes in retrospect to what's happening not only on your team, but also in the NFL. After it being reported that Todd France and Dak Prescott chose to turn down the contract, the question was asked why. They said that the last year, the 5th year of the contract was in question. They wanted to go from about 35 or 38 million, somewhere in that area, to 45 million. And the Cowboys supposedly said no. Reports then came out about Dak Prescott and Todd France saying that they never officially asked for the 45 million. So why would it have come up in the first place? I'm going to deviate for half a second before I finish my point. For those of you that made this a racial issue, Jerry Jones doesn't want to pay Dak Prescott because he's black. Oh, he was quick to pay Tony Romo, but he won't pay Dak Prescott. Let me ask you something. Ezekiel Elliott, black. Amari Cooper, black. Tyron Smith, black. And DeMarcus Lawrence, black. If you look up highest paid per position, they will all be at the top of their list. If they're not at the top, it's because they're at the tippy top. So how is this a racial incident? He never said he wasn't going to pay Dak Prescott because he was like, oh, well, he doesn't have to say it. We just know it. You do realize that they offered him a contract to make him the highest paid player in NFL history. Again, how is this racial? Now, here's why it's not the Cowboys' fault that Dak Prescott did not get his big-time contract. Number one, again, they offered him the highest paid and the highest guaranteed in NFL history. That does not sound like a team that's not trying to get a deal done. The player and his agent were said to have had an issue with the 5th year. They wanted 4 years so they could play the market a year earlier, I'm assuming to negotiate more money for another future contract. If you come into the NFL as a 4th-round draft pick and you're a starting quarterback with a winning record and you've stayed healthy, I'm not upset with you arguing why you should get paid more or why you should want to. I'm not upset with you arguing why you feel like you should be able to negotiate the amount of years on your contract. I would be upset with you arguing why you should get paid more than the highest paid ever. From the franchise perspective, I get it. You're trying to lock in a winning quarterback that has stayed healthy his entire career for as long as possible. From Dak and his camp's perspective, I also get it. You're trying to play the market as soon as possible because you understand once you're locked into this contract, the only way you get another one is through renegotiations. So 4 years will always sound better than 5. That way you're able to play the market early. The Cowboys are winning because they're only paying you $31.4 this year. They'll only pay you, if they franchise tag you again, $37.6 the next year, which will be competitive with market value. Again, it's a win-win in either situation as long as Dak Prescott stays healthy. And I'm not wishing any injury on him. The only way I will be able to say I told you so is if he gets injured. The only way you all will be able to say I told you so is if the market stays stagnant to a degree of which 37 million is asking for way too much or giving way too much to one player. But I'm sorry, I'm siding with the team on this one. Let me ask y'all something. How many playoff games has Dak Prescott won? This past season, how many games was he solely responsible for to say that we won the game? Now, I'm not going to argue and say, oh, well, he lost us. I'm a very transparent man. There weren't many games that I've seen in the last 2 years that I can directly say, hey, he's the reason why we lost. But there aren't many games that I can definitively say, oh, hey, he's the reason why we won. In the last 4 games, they needed 1 win. If they would have won the game over Philadelphia, it was completely over. The Dallas Cowboys would have been in the playoffs. I do not believe that they would have went too far, but nonetheless, they would have been in. In the last 4 games, they needed 1 win. Well, I take that back. I think in the last 5 before the very last game, but regardless, if they would have beaten Philadelphia, they would have been in the playoffs, point blank, period. Regardless of how you feel about him, he did not get it done. Yes, again, I am transparent. It is a team effort. But who gets the blame when he was winning games? Oh, it was Dak Prescott. He's a winning quarterback. So, again, he's going to get the blame when we're losing as well. I just want to know one thing. Make it make sense. How is the Dallas Cowboys franchise at fault for not signing Dak Prescott? He's going to get $31.4 million this year, which is making him the 5th highest paid. He'll get, if they franchise tag him again next year, if Dak stays healthy, he'll get somewhere north side of 37. If I'm not mistaken, it's 37 million. Okay, if they franchise tag him, I'm sorry, Liga got me, one more time, he'll get north side of almost like 54 million. So Dak is the one coming out on top. They offered him the highest paid and the highest guaranteed in NFL history. He said no because of the number of years on, reportedly said no because of the number of years on the contract. What are you upset about? How is this the Dallas Cowboys' fault? In all honesty, both sides could make out fairly well. Look at the Patrick Mahomes contract. When is the last time you've seen someone with 2 years on a contract get extended for 10 years? If I'm not mistaken, Donovan McNabb was not under contract and he got a 12-year contract, but Mahomes just got extended for another 10 years. If you go look at his contract, everybody keeps saying it's in the Chiefs' favor. No, it's not. Mahomes signs in 2023. Guess what? He's getting a paycheck for what he's going to do in 2025. He's going to essentially go pay for like $2.5 million, but already have another $29 million in his pocket. Make it make sense. How is the Dallas Cowboys franchise at fault? If I'm going to blame anybody for this not getting done, it's obviously going to be Dak Prescott. But again, all he has to do is stay healthy, and he will average over $40 million for the rest of his career. What's the issue? Are you drunk yet?